Hello, everyone. Welcome to 2026 and another episode of Trace and Tell with Ade and Joe. We're glad to have you here. This is episode one of 2026. So we'll see how this goes. It's been amazing. We started roughly middle of last year, and has been an interesting one. And also, like I always say, the feedbacks we've gotten from you guys has been a big push. So we appreciate you for that. And yeah, I have my co-host here with me, Joe. How are you? How has been the holiday? If there's any holiday at all. So what's up?
Yeah. It's been good. Good start to the year and good little holiday as well. Slowing down a little, but the scam world doesn't slow down, so
No.
back to work fairly quickly. And yeah, it's sunny where I am here in Northern Europe, so that's always nice here on a Friday. We don't normally record on Fridays, so you caught us in our let's get out of office Friday afternoon mode, but yeah, feeling good.
Nice, cool. It's very windy and cold here, so but yeah, and I think you can if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see we both have something that looks like a thick clothes on, and that's because yeah, it's cold. Let's just put it simply as that. It's cold. But yeah, it's really a nice one, and we just jump right into it. There obviously things are happening within the space, and we share a couple of our opinions. And I think the first one we're going to talking about is the trust wallet um, issue. And for those who are not aware, this is not the first time trust wallet is actually having um, an exploit issue of some sort. But yeah, it happens so. But just gonna share my screen now, so just for you guys can see what we have on our screen. So yeah, I'm just gonna read the news as it is. Yeah, Trustwallet users lose at least 6 million in security breach. Zach SPT found out. So it kind of like a very short trace. Like yeah, it's happened on their web browser extension. Apparently, there was an update that was not approved, and through that updates for those who are connecting to services or connecting to their Trust Wallet through the web Chrome extension, web browser extension rather, lost their funds, and in total they were able to calculate up to $6 million in loss. What's your take on this? Let me start from there. What's your take?
Okay, so yeah, my take on that is that it's good that it's been compensated by, for listeners who aren't aware, like Trust Wallet is an extension or subsidiary of Binance. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, that is correct. And so the Binance founder, CZ, infamous or famous guy, commented that everyone will be made whole and they'll compensate for those who lost their funds. So good news there is for those who lost funds. But yeah, it definitely highlights this issue or glaring issue, I would even say, in the Web3 space with browser extensions and browser
Mm-hmm.
wallets. Yeah, they're definitely vulnerable in this setup, and this is not the first time a browser extension has been hacked or manipulated, and
Yeah,
a lot of it's related to like supply chain implications with uh yeah, how these wallets work. So
yeah,
for the technical side of things, it looks like um yeah, they're able to exploit an attack vector associated with the JavaScript code, I believe. And yeah, just the nature of Chrome or other web extensions, that there's a number of attack vectors that such scammers or exploiters can exploit. So
yeah.
yeah, I don't know about you, but I've, this isn't the first time we've heard this story. I do not use web browser extensions anymore. At least I try not to. Maybe I'll use one briefly for a certain dApp that I have to plug
Mhm.
into, but then I typically delete it, like, shortly after that. So, um, I don't know, hopefully there are some solutions being worked on.
Yeah.
I know Ledger is partnering with MetaMask, for example, to still use your hardware wallet and that setup, but with the UI and interface of MetaMask. So that's a nice step in the right direction. But um, yeah, it's weird because Chrome extensions or browser extension wallets are really a big part of the user experience in this industry. It's
Yeah.
hard to use dApps and DeFi and other things without them,
True.
but they're quite vulnerable and risky at the same time. So,
Yeah.
and this story basically highlights that. So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
also sort of like so because I was reading through the incident reports made by Trustlates themselves. So I think so. There's kind of like some predicates, not offense, but there's like some issues that has happened right even before they even got to the point of um the exploit itself. So apparently, one of their developers' GitHub secrets were exposed. So if this happened in 2025, basically like almost a month prior to the event itself, the incident itself, if this happened, it's causing a couple of questions. Number one, when did they no, when did they find out that their developers' GitHub secret has been exposed? Like, was it immediate or was it in that December? Now, if it was in that December, how many things does the exploiters have access to? Because like this is sort of like yeah, we have to figure out what happened because something happened on the front end, and then everybody is sort of like making noise about it, right? So it brings in a couple of questions. So a developers was secret was exposed, and that led them to creating a couple of things. Now, a number of things I discovered was like so someone created metrics hyphen trustwallet.com. Normally within the space, one thing that I see as like a need to do, or which I know some companies do, is like they also monitor any single sort of domain that is created as a duplicate or sort of like very much looking like their own domain. So I would assume a Binance is scrapping the web for any domain that is created as Binance slash whatever.com or something that's all like relates to finance or something of that nature, whereby you would actually see something like, okay, this is not our domain. So what exactly is happening here? Because that is where the off-chain intelligence sort of like speaks to what actually happens on chain. So what exactly did they do in here when they find out this particular thing? Because and then something happened, a 2.68 version was created, and then people got their phones stolen. Well, as you said, is CZ mentioned that everybody was that got affected by this would get their funds back. But what if something has happened and it actually happens to be like an exchange that is using well I don't expect any exchange to use the web browser's extension for for their code wallet, but things like this I kind of feel like there is more story to the incident itself in terms of like what it says about security postures of some of these services. So I think that was like one of my major takeaway on this, but yeah, it's good that
Yeah,
people are going
yeah.
to get their funds back. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, great points as well. And just shows it's maybe not the most professional or up to like proper security standards that you would expect in other
Mhm.
sort of yeah, like it's not really even custody, but um, security oriented providers or solutions. If you would see this in any other type of Web 2 industry or banking or finance
Yeah.
in the traditional sense. So, yeah, there's still like a bit of a um, growing up, I guess you could say, or maturing
Yeah.
on this side of things for crypto. And yeah, a little ironic with Trust Wallet being called Trust Wallet, but yeah, so yeah, and like CZ or Binance. I suppose. I don't know what was in the terms or conditions or if there is some legal, necessity that they have to refund victims, but, that's also a gray area. Answering that question gets more into, I think, like, insurance and,
Mm-hmm.
how that works in crypto, which is an interesting place of developing. I think, like, you see it with Aave with, they're supposedly gonna insure people who use Aave for like up to $1 million or something like
Oh,
this.
really?
I don't know if you heard that news, but yeah,
No, I'll check.
uh, yeah, kind of interesting, and maybe a signal that people are wanting to take insurance more seriously, especially as as you and I, and I'm sure our listeners know well, all these hacks and vulnerabilities that happen in the decentralized financed area, but yeah, so I don't know. I think that's an interesting thing too, how it's just sort of like willy-nilly, well, at the discretion of who owns the service or product if they want to repay victims or not. So,
Mhm.
but guess the answer there is they don't really have to. So it's nice that they did in this case. But it'd be nice to have that more matured as well and like a definitive answer on people having more security, especially if you're going to call your wallet Trust Wallet. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Yeah. Last thing before we can like move on to the next, and this is sort of like to our listeners out there, right? So there is the idea that if you have you have an address or you have funds on your address, and then you have just one signing method to it, which is basically you have like a username and password or whatever to access that particular wallet address. I think this is the time to sort of like start telling people to use more of like multi-sig approach to sort of like having their funds secured because I'm not sure in this case specifically if what was exposed was the victim's private keys because in that instance I don't think even having a multi-sig would have worked because except maybe yeah, a multi-sig would have worked because you obviously would need the number of signatures to actually be able to transfer, even if you have access to one private key. If there's another private key that is not a trust wallet, maybe it's a MetaMask in this case, maybe it's like another wallet address in this case, and then you can sign on those two different platforms or different products before you can carry out a transaction. I think that would be one thing that like could have, in a way, protected users from this single signature approach of like losing funds because it happens so many times. Like yeah, it's single sig. Yeah, we know by Bybit's case, yeah, multi-sig, but that was like a very special case. But generally, almost everybody within the ecosystem are still using a single sig approach of sort of like securing their funds. So yeah, people should look into multi-sig. It's very safe. It's very simple. Yeah, you have a second factor. It's a lot of stress, but at the same time, it's just like you have your 2FA on your phones and like your Google apps and the like. So yeah, I think that's just another thing I want to share on this.
Definitely. Hmm.
Cool. So the second, which is sort of like related to wallet addresses again.
Yeah.
So hundreds of EVM wallets drained in mysterious attack, as called out by Zach SBT. Zach is one of the prominent investigators. I don't think he calls himself an investigator, to be honest, but he's one of the prominent guys within the space when it comes to crypto security, uh, not necessarily compliance, but sort of like being able to give ideas or how people can actually like secure their funds and assets within the space. So yeah, so he mentioned that an attacker has drained hundreds of crypto wallets on EVM chains a very small amount, right? And with each victim losing less than $2,000, and I think this is a very so like very unique state where the victims are not losing. Well, $2,000 is quite much, but it's sort of like something that would most likely fly under the radar. And I think so far in this report, it was recorded that the total funds lost, as so like known by um, Zach, is $106,000 or something like that. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, similar relatable story
Hmm.
to what we just spoke about. But yeah, I mean, classic phishing, social engineering case where uh, they emailed users of MetaMask. I'm not, yeah, apparently these hackers got a hold of emails of people
Yeah.
who use MetaMask and offered like a New Year's theme type of email. Apparently, like the Fox, the logo of MetaMask having like a party hat and really, yeah, just seemed like a natural New Year's themed type of upgrade. And it is confusing because sometimes you do get like some upgrades and you have to do certain things when you log into wallets. Like I know a Ledger, every if I haven't gotten into it for a little while, you got to like do a little upgrade. So it is like a natural thing that you have to do with wallets from time to time. As far as I'm aware, they would never actually email you, but then
Hmm.
again, you know, maybe people's defense is down a little bit, maybe during the holidays. They're not maybe so locked in on work and what they're reading and got other distractions. So that plays a part here, I would assume. And they're a bit clever on keeping the amount stolen under $2,000, it looks, to not alarm any signals that would, yeah, that might be monitoring wallets and addresses for suddenly large uh, withdrawals or, you know,
Yeah.
supposed withdrawals that were in fact phishing attempts or phishing transactions. So, I mean, fortunately, Zach XBT did get a hold of that, even though they were trying to stay below the this $2,000 mark. Not quite sure how that was done, but apparently has some sort of monitoring tool.
Yeah.
Not maybe with him or another team that he works in collaboration with, but it's good that they did find it. Uh, yeah, I don't think it was like a ton of money. It was like a little over like $100,000. So
Yeah.
as far as what I saw reported, certainly could have been a lot more considering the sophistication of the phishing attempt. But yeah, so maybe that's could be a positive component to the story.
But I
But yeah.
think I'm not sure if anything has been done so far, and possibly we'll probably check the address later on after the call. But I saw something on Blockade which is sort of like related to this, and Blockade is they're sort of like a threat intelligence company within the space. They kind of like wrote a little bit about, which I believe is related to what Zach mentioned. And I think it has to do with like a React vulnerability that is draining wallets. And from what they said here, legitimate sites were compromised, JavaScript, like you mentioned, UI prompts require transactions presented, approved signatures, fund flow to attackers' wallets. And in all of this, like $10,000 in confirmed asset theft, average of $198, and the highest so far is also still less than $2,000. Working across six chains and also sort of like impacted all of these specific wallet addresses. Um, it's a little bit of we actually can't say this is where it's coming from, but obviously there's a wallet address that we have, and obviously they have stolen funds in the wallet address. So it's still very much on like what exactly is going on in here. But I think back to um my initial statements regarding the trust wallets with regards to having to have multi-sig, and I think this also could be a way to sort of like curb or at least protect users from some of these specific attacks. So it's giving me a little bit of like what we'll get to see more of in 2026. And I won't be
Mhm.
surprised if there is a nexus to AI in all of these things. Maybe someone just ran whatever query on any of these particular LLM solutions to like what exactly is the exploits in this particular case. And then
Mm.
because it's so very reoccurring. Sometimes it might not be like a proper Web3 attack vector. It might be like a Web2 infrastructure. Like in this case, it seems like it's more like a Web2 infrastructure exploit. But yeah, I think we'll most likely see many of these things in this year. So uh, a good way to start the year, but not necessarily a good way in that sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it gets in because it's a phishing attack at the end of the day, and
Yeah,
um, yeah, we now have these, drainer kits or phishing kits, and you know, almost becoming a lot similar to the ransomware
yeah,
sort of typology or setup where you just copy and paste and reuse
yes.
phishing software or code. So yeah, I don't know. That would be interesting. I guess if there's a chance to get a hold of one of those emails and see what it was
I,
linked to, and
I actually got
yeah.
one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did, I got one, but I actually, yeah, it was obvious to me, so I actually did not bother myself to check it out. But yeah, I think I probably would see what's it's behind it. But yeah, like you said, it usually comes through from email, and before you know it, you're approving something you shouldn't.
Exactly. Well, and then I guess like, if it's a legitimate sort of like drainer as a service setup, maybe this is the client and they specialize their social engineering around this like New Year's Eve or New Year's Day
Mm,
email with MetaMask, but then on the back end, the proceeds, the money that they steal is divvied up
yeah,
and split between. It would be interesting to see the flow of funds and if they indeed separate like this and follow like a traditional drainer as a service setup. But yeah, something to look into. I'd be curious. Yeah.
cool, cool. No worries. Yeah, we might probably touch on this in another call we have in future. So, but yeah, let's quickly take a short break and then come back to discuss the last topic. All right, welcome back to Trace and Theory with Ade and Joe from the short break, and just on two other discussions we want to have. We'll start with uh Chen Z, I believe that's his name. And we've talked about this in a couple of other episodes on our podcast. Chen Z is the what I'll call him as like the president. Is he president or chairman of the Prince Group that was sanctioned by the US government? He himself has been sanctioned by US government, and a couple of addresses related to his group were also sanctioned. And for one thing or the other, there was a link between those sanction addresses and Lubianak. We sort of like discussed a couple of these in our past episodes. However, one of the missing pieces in this whole story has been the whereabouts of Chenzi himself. So nobody knew until very recently, I believe early this year, where Cambodia mentioned that they've extradited the mastermind, which is Chenzi, to China after arrest. Um, that's good news, I assume. But yeah, what's your take on this, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, good news to finally finding him and bringing him in. Yeah, I mean, the Prince Group was pretty detrimental to the crypto industry and scamming people. And I forget the numbers, but mega huge conglomerate
Yeah.
based out of Southeast Asia with it, some connections to China and probably if you work in investigations or compliance and or someone that's been scammed, there's probably recently in the last few years there's a reasonable chance it's somewhat connected to Prince Group in some way.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, um, definitely a major dent in the scam operations happening in Southeast Asia. But yeah, game of whack-a-mole and um, they pop up pretty quickly, and we're already seeing that other sort of conglomerates taking the space of
Yeah.
Prince Group. But nonetheless, good news. Maybe a case study to build on, and people can try to replicate the operations and how it was done. And I think the U.S., Cambodia, and Chinese authorities all working together, which is great to see. Hopefully, there can be some more of that, and um, more action like this can be done in that part of the world because, yeah, it's a huge problem. I know the victims I work with and stuff tend to have a lot of cases in this area, and
Yeah.
um, yeah, you see it when you're tracing like the infrastructure and the wallets, and they have, geolocation and connections to the sort of operations in that part of the world, such as Holy One, which we've talked a lot about, and
Hmm.
other sanctioned entities there. So yeah, let's see how what the ending verdict will be on Shenzi, and if this can be continued and maybe some momentum to get more justice served. So good news nonetheless.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, we'll definitely keep tab on this one also. I think it's still going to continue to unravel. I think there are still so many layers to this story, to be honest. So I'm sure we'll get more out of it as it comes on. And finally, to our last discussion of the day, which is brazen, in many ways distasteful. So now this is Eric Adams. So yeah, former Bitcoin mayor Eric Adams faces $3 million rug pull allegation after issuing New York City or NYC token, which I think most people would most likely call that New York City token. So uh, it's it was very interesting. And just sort of like reading what I have here, on-chain data revealed that a wallet linked to the token's deployer removed $2.5 million in liquidity, prompting accusation of a rug pull. And so far, the former mayor has denied any of these allegations. Um, there are so many questions in here. Um, how what exactly is New York City talking? What exactly does is it meant to do? Meme coin, yes, but like oof, it's a whole lot of who are the people that are actually falling for this scam. I'll call it a scam outrightly because I don't see the need of another token if it's not just to get money off people. But yeah, what exactly is your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, to follow up what you just said, if it's just simply to take money from other people, he should set up a GoFundMe and be, that's what that should be.
Yeah.
Of course, yes, it's pretty obvious this is super sleazy and likely a fraudulent pump and dump scheme. And
Mhm.
sure, investors or whatever you want to call them who put their money into it should know better. But nonetheless, there is a attempt to deceive people and be disingenuous and say this is some sort of project that you should put your money into, whether sleazy looking and you know promoted by Eric Adams or
Mhm.
not. Like that's still the case, because I say that because I think I posted on LinkedIn, and I see some people even that work in compliance, and kind of just like scoffing at how stupid people were to put their money in, and like we should just leave it at that. Um, I don't think that. I mean, it's still an attempt to like defraud people, whether
Mhm.
unintelligent the supposed investors were or not. Like, of course, people. It's pretty obvious this is a pump and dump scheme, but that doesn't mean like it should just be allowed. And
Yeah.
we should still think about complying, in the word compliance, and wire fraud and market manipulation are still illegal. At least I hope they are. They should be. um and yeah, I mean, if you care about the crypto industry and want it to continue, and even if you are in compliance and maybe you're not some super on-chain degen who has their whole life savings in crypto, but you benefit from the growth of this industry in some way, like you should not want this stuff happening, and you should want um, people being prosecuted who do these things, and it should because otherwise I don't know how else it like stops or gets clamped down. I mean, yeah, you can
Yeah.
shrug your shoulders and just say like, "Oh, everyone should know better." I don't think that's gonna improve the situation and help the industry. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's my take on that. I think we should still care about fraudulent practices. And again, if it's really that obvious and he just wants people from A to give money to person B and just simply take their money, then set up a GoFundMe and call it for what it is, you know.
Yeah.
Um, that's kind of my take on that. But yeah, maybe for listeners who don't know much about Eric Adams too, like he's already indicted on other charges. I think bribery, wire fraud, take miscalculating or lying about campaign contributions, and then he's getting closer, even though he is a Democrat or was, has gotten cozier with Trump with his um, pardons and trying to work in this sort of scammy crypto side of this world and the Trump administration and their businesses, and uh, play his part in getting a pardon, which I don't think. Maybe he has. I haven't read that or heard that. If he has, there's
No,
pardons
I
left and right and
haven't.
every day now. So, but maybe he needed to show Trump how sleazy he could be and do his own pump and dump before he got his pardon. But yeah, so that's some context there too.
Cool. Yeah, like I said, yeah, we shouldn't just let this yeah, it shouldn't be just one of those other scams or one of those other illicit activities that you overlook just because it's not as interesting as the other exploits or other illicit activities happening in the space. So, because I want to assume that some people's first rodeo in crypto is most likely going to do with this activity, right? And for all it's worth, they've lost their funds, and to them, that is the only thing they are going to know about crypto, and that is not what the ecosystem needs, to be honest. So yeah, I agree. We'll see
Yeah,
how this
exactly.
goes. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this all highlights this pump and dump stuff, and it was big. Was pump.fun whatever on Solana, and it became this huge part. Like, not to throw Solana under the bus, but it was much of the activity on Solana, and it had its kind of moment in the sun there for a little bit,
yeah,
but uh, it just, yeah, I mean, it damages the reputation of this industry, and I think some people are like maybe not so self-aware of like the objective look at the crypto industry from non-crypto people, and unfortunately I think it's getting real synonymous with just scams, corruption, um, you know autocrats in some parts of the world and things like this. So um, yeah, it's kind of concerning. It's sad to see because I do think it's what a lot of people perceive the crypto industry as now is just scammy pump and dump stuff, but hopefully those bridges haven't fully been burned or can be rebuilt, and um, things, more practical use cases and beneficial use cases come about. But yeah, I don't know. I think because some reason I don't, I see some people not that concerned about it, where I feel like they should be more. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents about it.
no worries. I think I don't think it's just going to go unnoticed. I'm very sure we'll still hear more about it. So and we'll definitely keep our tabs on this also. That is all we can take this week. And definitely, we hope you've been able to get one or two things out of what we've discussed from Trust Wallets. Be safe, be secured, use multi-sig to EVM wallets getting drained. Still kind of like the same advice. Use multi-sig. Uh, Though if it's too good to be true, it's most likely not true, and that is the case with the Cambodian everything that has to do with scams and also Bitcoin Mayor as it's called, Eric Adams NYC token. So yeah, hopefully you've learned one or two things. We'll see you on another episode of Trace and Tell with Ade and Joe. Thanks for being here and see you soon. Bye guys.